welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to First Parish, Unitarian Universalists of Arlington.
We choose.
We choose.
We choose to be
A liberal religious community.
Welcoming
To all.
We encourage each other
on our spiritual journeys.
Support one another
through the changes in our lives.
And challenge the excesses
and injustices of our time.
Called to love.
To love. And upheld by joy.
We live our faith.
We move deeper now in prayer and meditation with the words of Minneapolis artist Matt Moberg, followed by 2 minutes of shared silence. I think every human being eventually has a moment where they are standing outside in sweatpants that have lost the will to be pants, holding a trash bag, a divorce, a parking ticket, or some other receipt from the universe that says, surprise, this too is part of it. And then the sky bruises purple, and the air touches your face like it knows your whole story. And suddenly you realize all the real is actually unreal. The dirt, the breath, the weird little bones in your hands, the fact that we are here on a floating rock with pollen counts, paying bills, missing dead people, loving living people who say, leaving now, while still fully naked and looking for socks. And still, the moon clocks in. No applause, no benefits, no note from management saying, great work being ancient and luminous again. Just the moon, working nights like a single mother with no applause. Tell me that isn't holy. Tell me there is a better word than sacred for the way light keeps returning, with no guarantee we will actually stop and take note. I know people who believe in therapy, probiotics, tarot, 12-step meetings, manifestation journals, and waiting exactly 11 minutes before texting back so they do not appear emotionally available, even though their whole nervous system is standing in the driveway holding flowers. And underneath all of it, every ritual, every doctrine, every smoothie with chia seeds, the prayer is the same. Please let me be loved. Please let me be forgiven. Please let this strange little life mean something. The older I get, the less use I have for certainty. Certainty has never made me pull over because the sunset looked like God dropped a jar of peach jam across the whole Midwestern sky and decided to be lazy and not clean up. No, it has always been awe. Awe was the first church, before steeples, before committees. Awe was there with its wild hair and its muddy feet saying, look, look again. Look until looking becomes love. Awe and soup. Awe and someone rubbing your back when you are sick. Awe and the old couples at Target arguing gently about avocados. Maybe gratitude was never meant to sound elegant. Maybe gratitude sounds like, thank you, body, for continuing to drag me through this world despite the many Slim Jims I have done to you at gas stations. Maybe gratitude sounds like thank you to the dogs who lose their entire minds when we come home as if we have returned from war and not Walgreens. For me, that might be my gospel. That joy does not wait for us to be impressive, but only needs us to come through the door. Because the truth is, this life is devastating and ridiculous. But even now, even tired, even grieving, even emotionally held together by iced coffee, playlists, and one very specific Wolves hoodie, we keep finding reasons to stay soft. We plant tomatoes even though grief is real. We bake bread even though the news is on fire. We send photos of the sky to people we love with captions like, "You have to see this," because wonder is the oldest form of resurrection. So here's to the believers and the atheists and the agnostics. Here's to the tender-hearted weirdos, the accidental mystics, the ones who know despair has a mouth, but so does laughter. May we remember whatever else this is, whatever mess, whatever miracle, whatever cosmic group project that no one was prepared for, all of it is astonishing. That we are here, that we have loved enough to be ruined, that the moon keeps showing up, that bread exists. So pass it on. Tear off a piece with your bare hands. Take it in as you take it down. And then go outside and look at that moon. How do we worship? Sometimes the instruction is as straightforward as the sequence I found on a sign at the Heian Jingo Shrine in Kyoto, Japan, labeled "How to Worship." Bow slightly, make a donation, and compose yourself. Bow twice, deeply. Clap your hands twice, slowly. Bow deeply once more. When my husband, Jason, our child Alice, and I set off on a 6-month journey around the world in August 2025, we were looking for many things: new landscapes, new foods, new connections, and new perspectives. We traversed the globe, from the beaches of Sicily to the rainforests of Madagascar, from the sacred rivers of India to the ancient ruins of Cambodia, from the steamy backwaters of Vietnam to the snowy mountains of Japan. You can get a lot of places in 6 months. Yet, amidst all the wonders of our itinerary, we found ourselves repeatedly drawn to the sacred. We visited churches and cathedrals, mosques, temples, and shrines dedicated to an array of saints, gods, teachers, heroes, spirits, and ancestors. As I watched people across the globe, I began to see that worship is not necessarily about the object of our devotion, but about the architecture of our attention. Here at First Parish, we can get a little squirrely about the word worship. We may associate it with a rigid, monotheistic version of divinity that doesn't fit our own beliefs. In recent years, we have reached back to the Old English root, worthship, to reclaim the word as an act of acknowledging that which is worthy of our focus. In the old city of Hoi An, Vietnam, we stood before a statue of a Polish architect named Kazimierz Kwiatkowski. The local community, having restored their neighborhood thanks to his advocacy, created a space for people to offer their respects and leave offerings, exalting the man they knew simply as Kazik. In the largest flower market in Bangkok, there is a golden shrine to Bunma, brother to King Rama I and patron of the market, where we learned to fold lotus flowers to leave with our prayers. In Yanaka, a quiet neighborhood in Tokyo, we passed this tiny shrine dedicated to the neighborhood's cats. These spaces serve a common function. They take a moment of the mundane and elevate it, carving out a pocket of significance in the middle of a busy city. Our guides frequently use the word worship to describe the activity that happens here, the relationship with the images, individuals, and ideals enshrined in these places. We tend to compartmentalize our lives. These are the things we honor, and these are the things we worship. Yet the world offers a more porous definition. In the sacred traditions we encountered, the line between ancestor, teacher, hero, and deity often blurs. The Temple of Literature in Hanoi, Vietnam, served as the national university for 700 years. It is dedicated to the Chinese philosopher Confucius and his key disciples, with shrines also honoring the top scholars of the institution and 3 of the Vietnamese emperors most closely associated with the temple's history. In Shanghai, we visited a temple to the city gods, 3 historical statesmen and generals deified for their loyalty to the city. Traveling the world, I began to see that worship is not necessarily about the what, not about whether you are kneeling before a transcendent God or a local hero, but about the how. Worship is the ritualized practice of focusing our spirits. One of the most profound and common elements of these sacred spaces is the gate. A gate is a physical marker of the passage from the mundane world into the sacred. Whether it is a Sikh temple in New Delhi, the Moon Gate in Hanoi, or the Water Gate at Miyajima, the gate tells the traveler, everything you were doing 5 minutes ago, leave it here. Step into this space and be transformed. You are leaving the world behind. You are entering a space of focused attention. At the Itsukushima Shrine in Japan, our guide taught us to wave strands of origami lightning over our shoulders to brush away any demons that might be trying to follow us into the sacred space. I love that imagery. How often do we bring our internal demons, our anxieties, our to-do lists, our grudges into our own sanctuaries? What if we practiced, quite literally, shedding them at the doorway? In many parts of the world, worship is a sensory experience, a vivid, tactile engagement. We witness this often in the temples of India. In the main shrine, out of 108 at the Eklingi temple near Udaipur, where photography was unfortunately not permitted, we saw the 4-faced idol representing Shiva bathed in 7 liquids: water from the Ganges, milk, honey, ghee, yogurt, sugarcane juice, and rosewater, in a rhythmic physical expression of spiritual cleansing, a cooling of the god's inner flames. In the Govind Devji temple in Jaipur, we watched as priests closed the door to the main altar so that the image of Krishna could rest and have its clothes changed, before opening them again to a crowd of ecstatic worshippers. In Thailand, large golden stupas or chedi that hold sacred relics are frequently the center of temple complexes. At Wat Phra Tat Doi Suthep on the mountain above Chiang Mai in Thailand, devotees are encouraged to walk clockwise 3 times around the chedi to honor the Buddha, his teachings, and the monastic community. These rituals are reminders that worship can be an active, physical engagement. It is not just a thought in the head, it is a movement of the hands, a walk around a stupa, or the lighting of incense. How do we move in our sacred spaces? What could we gain by being more intentional in our movement? Worship can also have a physical impact on the world. Faith really can move mountains. The giant Buddha of Lishan in China overlooks the confluence of 3 rivers, where a dragon was said to lurk, capsizing boats and drowning villagers. The monk Haitong had a vision that carving this enormous Buddha would calm the waters. For 70 years, he raised money and rallied local workers to continue this grand project of faith. And it worked. The act of building the monument and dumping the tailings into the river changed the currents of the water, making them safer to navigate. The connection between money and worship is a challenging one for me. In many of the spaces we visited, donating is fundamental to the act of worship. You make a donation and clap your hands to get the attention of the gods. You make a donation to write a prayer on a gold cloth that wraps the Buddha. You make a donation for an incense spiral that carries your hope to the heavens for weeks. It is easy to label this as transactional, but perhaps we're missing the point. In Tokyo, we saw a shrine dedicated to a monk specifically for those with leg issues. People made donations and received plaques they inscribed with prayers for stronger legs, for everyone from marathon runners to elderly neighbors navigating stairs. At Tiger Leaping Gorge in China, where a legendary tiger escaped a persistent hunter by springing across the rushing rapids, thousands of plaques hang in the wind, each a specific prayer for a leap of faith in someone's life, each representing a donation. At the Fushimi Inari Shrine in Kyoto, there are over 10,000 of these bright orange gates, each one donated by an individual or business. These gates are not just signs of prosperity. They are physical manifestations of gratitude. They remind us that our resources, our successes, and our labor are part of the same wholeness as our prayer. Perhaps these offerings are simply concrete ways to tether our intentions to the world. When you write your name on a plaque to hang a prayer in a place that feels sacred, you are making a commitment to your own hope, anchored by a small sacrifice. You are saying, this matters. My life matters. My desire for a better future matters. These practices acknowledge that we are embodied beings with concrete needs for health, for prosperity, for strength, for guidance. We saw this not only in the grand spaces of communal worship, but in the front gardens of homes and office buildings, railway terminals, even gas stations around the world. Tiny shrines dedicated to the particular spirit of the places where they stand, maintained and supported by the devotion of the inhabitants. They remind me of the bathtub Marys of Somerville and our little free libraries, installations that proclaim our values and our connections to the places where we live. Many of the homes we visited also contained shrines or altars, some small and simple, others grand and elaborate, dedicated to the divine and to the ancestors of the household. In India, we saw stalls in the markets selling clothing and accessories for the figurines of gods that populate these small, sacred spaces. Although most Chinese people we talked with told us that the Chinese are not a religious people, they also mentioned that most kitchens have at least a calendar to invoke the kitchen god. These are not just decorations, they are domestic anchors. They remind us that our homes, our businesses, and our journeys are part of a larger story of protection and prosperity. While the grand golden temples were breathtaking, I found that the spaces that felt the holiest to me were often the ones reclaimed by time. The ruins of the Sasbahu temples near Udaipur drew us into an awed, hushed silence that resonated with my spirit more than the vibrant crowds in active temples. Built in the 10th century and abandoned after their city was invaded in the 13th, the central altars are empty now, but still issue an invitation to worship. In Cambodia, we arrived at Ta Prohm at daybreak. It was once a Buddhist monastery and university, surrendered to the jungle for 500 years. Giant trees have grown through the walls, holding them together even as they topple them. Walking alone through the ruins, we felt the weight of history and the persistent quiet pulse of some larger mystery. And in the Dazhu district of China, we found the Cave of Perfect Enlightenment. It was a dark, cool space, lit only by shafts of daylight, dimly illuminating carvings of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas, and a single seeker kneeling before them. In that cave, the space itself seemed to exhale. It was designed not for performance, but for the internal work of clearing one's mind and achieving spiritual awakening. Returning to the reality of life here in Massachusetts, what can we take from this journey? If we reclaim the word worship to mean what we hold as worthy, then we each have the opportunity to build a practice that is as rich and as intentional as anything I saw in my travels. What is worthy to us? We hold as worthy the dignity of every person. We hold as worthy the pursuit of justice and the health of our planet. We hold as worthy the messy, complicated, beautiful process of living in community. We do not need to become Buddhists, Shintoists, or Hindus to practice the simple, transformative act of setting our demons down at the door. We do not need a golden statue to create a sacred moment, to recognize that we are surrounded by spirits of place and memory. We do not need 4-step instructions to be more intentional in our physical practices. Whether it is the way we walk into our sanctuary, the way we light our chalice, or the way we offer our hands in service, these acts of devotion help us align our bodies with our intentions. We can recognize that the sacred is not something out there, but something we cultivate together. The 100,000 Buddhas in the Longmen grottos of Luoyang in China were not built by a single architect. They were commissioned by leaders, guilds, and individuals, and carved one by one over centuries, each an act of petition or gratitude. Our community, too, is built out of these individual acts of devotion. the time we give, the care we show, the resources we share. Every time we show up at First Parish, every time we sing, every time we listen to one another, we are carving our values into the stone of our time. One of my favorite customs we encountered on our journey, one familiar to many of us from yoga classes, but seldom seen on the streets here in the US, is the namaste. On greeting anyone in the Rajasthan region of India particularly, you bow slightly over palms pressed together and say namaste, to recognize the divine in me honors the divine in you. While I'm sure many people there think little about it each time, any more than we usually recognize God be with you in goodbye, it adds a moment of the sacred to every interaction that I found beautiful. May we be brave enough to pass through our own gates, humble enough to bow to the wisdom around us, and ever mindful that whether we are in a distant cave or a local sanctuary, the sacred is always waiting for us to notice it. By finding the sacred in the middle of the ordinary, we make the whole world a little more holy. Namaste.